startups, and I also have my hobby is there. Besides innovations and studying all the time, I have a running club, and I'm a marathon runner. I finished 48 marathons so far. Like fun fact about me. And I'm looking forward to speak about Swedish innovations today. So, Matthias, so the stage is yours.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's very kind, and I'm trying to share this as well. Let's see if it works to share it on like LinkedIn. It should be going live on LinkedIn, I believe. But yeah, thanks Oksana, thanks Tanya, Tatiana. So super briefly about me, I'm basically Swedish-Finnish, so I'm a mix. But I studied economics and business, but then I became a serial entrepreneur basically from the day I was a student at university. So I've been running various companies for around 15 years. Then I became an investor. Back in 2019, I moved to Kiev. So I lived in Kiev until the full-scale invasion. And I've been building a portfolio of Ukrainian tech investments. So we've made around 20 investments in Ukraine. But then I'm also a co-founder of Pareto Business School together with another Swedish guy called Jens Beckboom. And so we run the Pareto Business School, and we have this Pareto MBA, which you guys are a part of now, which is fantastic. And so the idea of the Pareto MBA is to make business education available and kind of bring it into, the future, as it were, because the business education that we received and most MBA programs are quite old-fashioned and not really relevant in this kind of new world that we live in. So we have built this Pareto MBA, which is a mini MBA. So it's part-time, online mix of self-study and live sessions. So yeah, very exciting stuff. And obviously, we are based in Stockholm. I do travel to Ukraine a lot, spend a lot of time there. But in a sense, we're part of this, Swedish tech scene that we can discuss today. And we followed it since the early days. So I've been following it for 20 years, so I can reflect on it from that perspective.
Cool. Well, maybe we didn't plan this question, but since it just happened and it's huge, like, what do you think about the current Ukrainian defense tech IPO? What is
Swarmer.
the name? Swarmer. Yeah.
Swarmer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed out on this investment myself. We are invested in some other Ukrainian defense tech companies like U-Force, making the Magura drones. We are investor there, but and a few others. But unfortunately, we missed this Swarmer. It's amazing. It's just amazing, and it's unexpected that they IPO'd so fast. I would love to hear more about their thinking behind it and how they managed to do it, because it's a really big achievement, actually, really big achievement, especially since the current market environment is very, very tough. Defense tech is clearly booming, right? But in general, the stock market, if we talk about the kind of US stock market or basically any stock market, has had a really rough time so far in 2026. Software companies have had a really, really tough time. So it's extra impressive taking into account the market environment. So yeah, it's just, and another IPO, so Swedish, fintech called Klarna IPO'd recently too, and they've had a very tough time on the stock exchange. I think they're down, 60-70% since the IPO. So it's really, again, like Swarmer is, big congratulations, hats off to everybody, including the investors, D3 and others. So D3 is this defense tech fund, financed by Eric Schmidt, the sort of Google former CEO and chairman. I was part of the working group that was launching D3, and they, I think, but I had no part in this investment. Again, unfortunately, but they've done an amazing job. So hats off to D3 and all the other investors who have been backing this Swarmer. Yeah, well done. Obviously, well done to the entrepreneurs behind it. Like that's the big thing. They've been doing all the hard work.
Yeah, the fun fact, they're kind of like a good acquaintance, the friend of mine. He just left Kyivstar, which is the first IPO of Ukraine, and now he works in this company in Sweden. So, and he said that I'm probably the only one person in Ukraine who used to work in both IPOs in Ukraine. So maybe it's interesting to talk to him in another life. But let's jump probably in Swedish innovations.
Tanya, well, actually, Tanya is the only professional journalist here. So, yeah, the floor is yours. I know that you prepared some interesting data to catch the attention. And on my side, I confirm that I'm streaming to all the platforms I plan to. And yeah, so we have the audience.
Awareness. So.
And I'm streaming on LinkedIn as well, just so you know. So it will be on my LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Oh, I will share yours. So, yeah. Okay. So I think like the most data Matthias has about Swedish innovations and business, obviously, but for the people who is listening us, there are important facts like the hooks about Swedish market, Swedish business is like this is their second like tech hub or second country which has so many unicorns. So you have 14 unicorns, right? Am I right?
I think there's probably many more. I think there are some different numbers. I think there's more than 14. Okay, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but they're interesting fact that Sweden has only 10 million people population. So, and for this like not that big country, 14 unicorns. That's the last information I found for March 2026. And of course, you know, everyone knows Spotify. Probably now everyone who's listening to us knows Lovable, Klarna. Yeah, and then we can continue in the list. And Stockholm itself is like the big tech hub, and 3.5% of GDP is invested in R&D of innovations. So I don't know, you know, like now internet is like we want to trust. So, but at least it's something you can confirm or said, oh no, it's not true.
Coming from like ChatGPT, or you double checked it?
No, not ChatGPT. So,
I mean, so it's probably, yeah. I've seen this number 14 that you refer to. I've also seen the number, 40 or 50.
I have the list.
Yeah. It doesn't change the overall point. Like it's clearly, a significant amount of unicorns, and unicorn is just an arbitrary cutoff point, right?
Sure.
So, but it's very clear that there is a lot of successful tech companies coming out of Sweden. Like that's very clear.
Yeah, so we want to talk about like how it happened. So why Sweden is so innovative and so successful in that. And we would like to know what is this Sweden like playbook or like blueprint. So and maybe to stole or borrow some tricks from you. So
yeah, and super relevant question, right? Like, is there something for others to learn from this? I mean, I'll start by reflecting on kind of briefly about like how we ended up in this situation, in this good situation, right? So when I was a student at the Stockholm School of Economics, I started there in 2002 and I finished in 2008. I mean, I finished late because I was running a company, but I started my first startup in 2004, 2005. So it's almost exactly 20 years ago. And back then, this is before the financial crisis. And this is an important part of the explanation, I think, that back in 2005, 6, 7, everybody wanted to work in banks or in consulting companies. So they wanted to go to, Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, whatever, right? or they wanted to go to McKinsey, BCG, or Bain, or whatever, right? So this is before the great financial crisis. And the only kind of successful startup that Sweden produced before the great financial crisis was, I was going to say Spotify, but it was Skype, you know?
Or Skype.
And Skype is like Skype is like the original gangster, you know? And of course, you know, Swedish people say that Skype is Swedish, Estonians say that Skype is Estonian. It doesn't really matter, right? It's probably both. But it's clear that it was, for Sweden, it was hugely significant because it was like the first time you could look at the founder, you know, Niklas Zennström, and you could say like, wow, how is it possible to build a company worth so much just by, you know, doing something on the internet, you know, so to speak. So that was like the only thing we could, when I was, you know, a young entrepreneur, Skype was the only example we had. Mm-hmm. So I think the first point is that you need these examples of, yeah, it's actually possible to do it, you know, like the feeling of this is actually possible. And then to come back to the idea of the great financial crisis, what happened was the banks, especially the banks, but the financial industry became a less attractive employer after 2008, 2009, right? So if you were like a young student or, you know, young, you know, entrepreneurial person, you were no longer as attracted, you know, by going to London, you know, working for Goldman Sachs or something. It was maybe more interesting to you know, start your own company. So I think that's an important part of the explanation. But it's really, I think one of the main points is also that it takes time to build an ecosystem. Like the thing we see today with, you know, Lovable and Legora and these other guys, this did not happen overnight. So it's taken 20 years to get to this point, right? And you need like early successes that you can look up to. You need like capital. Sweden has a huge advantage in that Sweden has a lot of capital. There's a lot of rich people in Sweden. You might not think so because you think of Sweden being kind of like a socialist country, which is it's a ridiculous idea, but you sometimes hear this idea.
But we know.
Yeah, right. The thing is though that if you make a salary in Sweden, you pay very high taxes. Mm-hmm. But if you have capital income or capital gains, you pay very low income tax or very low tax rate. Basically, Sweden is much better for capitalists than the US, for example. Mm-hmm. If I own shares, basically I pay 0% tax. A bit simplified, but I pay very, very low tax rate. So that's another part of the explanation. It's very beneficial to be an entrepreneur in Sweden. It's quite easy to start a company. It's actually very easy to start a company in Sweden. And so those are parts of the explanation. Then, you know, Sweden has amazing, you know, broadband internet. Sweden has amazing mobile networks. Sweden was, together with Finland, the original gangster in building mobile networks. So you had Nokia in Finland and Ericsson in Sweden back in Ericsson is 100 years old, more than that, right? But you know, they started building the NMT and GSM network. So Sweden was world-class in mobile networks and you know, in broadband. So, and we had this home PC reform in the 90s where the Swedish government subsidized people who wanted to own computers in Sweden. So there are many, many parts to this story, but it takes time. I think that's maybe the main takeaway.
Yeah, but it's impossible to put their like hand here.
Oh, but, sorry.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you're a perfect interviewee because you don't need questions. You just share everything, so we just smile.
My apologies, and you should interrupt me anytime here.
Okay.
No, it's great. So because Matthias actually is their lecturer in a business school, so he's very experienced in that. Mm-hmm. But about like it takes time. So the question is like, I don't know, can you count like how long did it take to build all of this ecosystem? Maybe we can start counting from, I don't know, like it's like 20 years, right? Like from
I mean, it's it started in the 90s maybe with kind of mobile phones and that kind of stuff, and this like home computer subsidies, right? Like the home PC reform in Sweden. That's a big part of it, but it's much more complex than that. So then again, the access to capital and all the rest of it. But yeah, so it's been kind of building up since the 90s. It's probably really accelerated since in the past 15 years, I would say. So it really started accelerating in the 2010s, probably.
Yeah, probably after this bank crisis, then people
I
realized
think
that
so.
it's not that attractive to work there anymore, and so let's do something else. But also in the same time, like mobile, internet, everything like that.
Yeah.
But I think so. Of course, we are Ukrainians and we are Ukrainian entrepreneurs, and we are always comparing, like to all of you are saying, or all of you are reading to us, and it will be another, I think, like a big question later. But I also can admit that we do not have that privilege to have this like long-term planning, because so you are aware of a bit about Ukrainian situation even before the war, because we never had stability, so you cannot, so your any strategy, any plan will always be like interrupted. So that's why people even do not think long term. They even do not, I think, plan like for 5-10 years, because it doesn't make any sense. So but I don't know, maybe this question is, so you can answer as you want. Like how do like why Sweden is so like not interrupted and has this luxury of this planning.
It's a good question. I think so. First of all, I do think Ukraine is very entrepreneurial. I mean, I've been investing in Ukraine since 2014, basically. So even way before the full-scale invasion. Actually, during the original Russian invasion of Ukraine, 2014, that's when we started investing in Ukraine. So I think Ukraine is very entrepreneurial. But okay, if we think about like society, so what kind of society is Sweden? So yes, there is stability in the sense that when I was a student, the government was financing my studies. Yeah, so university is free in Sweden, but then you also get around maybe 1,000 euros every month from the government, so you can rent a place to live and you can have some food, right? Now, what happens if you're a student and you start a startup? The worst thing that can happen is that your startup disappears and you just go back to being a student, and the government will anyway just kind of keep paying you every month, right? So it's being a student in Sweden, you have a lot of stability. It might not feel so, but there's a lot of stability being a student, meaning students are encouraged to take risk, you can say, right? Now, of course, in Ukraine, you have a lot of startups being started by people who are students or, just finished university. So you have it there too. But yeah, there's a lot of stability in Sweden. I think one interesting comparison is with the US. So if like the US has obviously a lot of unicorns, probably even a bit more unicorns per capita than Sweden has, although it's probably around the same number, probably. And the US is a completely different kind of society than Sweden. The US has no social security network, basically. It costs a lot of money to be a student in the US. You have to pay for tuition, you have to pay for housing, all the rest of it, yeah? But still the US produces a lot of startups. So it's very funny, like the US, which is a highly competitive capitalist, type of society, and Sweden, which has a lot of social systems in place. Both of these countries are producing, similar number of unicorns per capita. I think this is very interesting. So you can have two separate systems which have similar results. Yeah. So it's hard for us to draw any kind of real conclusions from this. I think, of course, coming back to Ukraine, I think, of course, Ukraine would benefit from having more stability on some level, yeah? At the same time, so we spoke about the Swarmer IPO, this Ukrainian defense tech startup, which IPO'd, just a few days ago. And, the UForce company where we are an investor, which is maybe probably the first Ukrainian defense tech unicorn. So the war is horrible. It has also produced, a huge amount of entrepreneurship in Ukraine. Like huge amount, like insane amount, really. It will be written into the history books, what is happening in Ukraine, since especially 2022. It will be on the same level as, we read about the Mongol invasion in the 13th century or, whatever, right? Or, Mazeppa or something. It's like the same, it's like historical event. And it's really, so it's hard to say, like, of course, in the future, in a peaceful, powerful Ukraine with its original borders, maybe a bit more, who knows, then, Ukraine should have free university, it should have free healthcare, all of these things. It should have social security, support networks, all of these things. It would probably be a good thing for Ukraine in terms of entrepreneurship. Yeah, it's such a big topic. So it's hard to...
Yeah, it's really a big topic, but I wanted to add, I've been to BEDEX exhibition, the biggest defense exhibition in Europe, probably, in Brussels recently. And they said that, of course, lots of Ukrainians. And there's lots of, more than 300 defense companies in Ukraine now, like only like officially like existed. So can you imagine this market? Yeah, but I think that also there it's about the culture. I mean, like going back to this like entrepreneurial mindset and culture of like just opening their something. So there is this culture in like Silicon Valley, in and yeah, so also in Sweden, yeah.
Yeah, the question of culture is also complex. Yeah, so for sure there is entrepreneurial culture in Ukraine, for sure. There's entrepreneurial culture in Sweden. There's entrepreneurial culture in the US. There's entrepreneurial culture in India, in China. So
and they're all different, right?
Yeah, right. So everybody has some kind of entrepreneurial culture, that's clear. But entrepreneurship is also a term which is it's not really clearly defined, and there are different kinds of entrepreneurship. But if you look at Sweden in the 70s, it would be absolutely not considered an entrepreneurial country. I mean, it was very kind of stale and nothing interesting was happening except, ABBA was happening. The music scene was happening, but nothing else, And Sweden, was kind of maybe reborn as an entrepreneurial nation, again, quite recently after the financial crisis, arguably, maybe, So it's hard to say. It's hard to say what an entrepreneurial culture is and how you create it. I think it's such a complex thing. Like you need to have all these different things, like pulling or pushing in the same direction, and then you get these outcomes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I can tell about Ukraine, like why people become entrepreneurs in Ukraine. So the answer is simple, because it's almost impossible to earn lots of money. Then you work for somebody else. Like you can only, build a long career in unstable country, in bank, or maybe an international company, or maybe like consulting, which not that many like people working there in Ukraine. Yeah, that's why you're doing your thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, for instance, now I'm in Netherlands, and you easily can earn quite nice money working all of your life and saving for your like all the years, etc. Yeah, but yeah, the next question is about their market of Sweden. So you do not have that many people, obviously, like only 10 millions. Probably you cannot become the unicorn in the local market, right? So
Yeah.
how it works in this entrepreneurial like way
Yeah.
to plan like from the start to go somewhere else, or how it
Yeah.
works?
So I think Sweden and Ukraine, and I've been saying this for a long time, like I think Sweden and Ukraine are quite similar in that the local market is quite small. So entrepreneurs usually go outside, the local market. Of course, again, in the US, you don't have to do that. You can be like a, decacorn or whatever, just, working with US clients. But for Sweden and Ukraine, entrepreneurs look outside. Of course, not everybody. But if you take Spotify as an example, so they started, here locally in Sweden. Then their big strategic decision was to go to the US quite early. I mean, it took a long time for them to get to the US. It was a very complicated process, but they really actually succeeded big time in the US. And that's probably the key to Spotify's huge success. It's by far the most successful Swedish startup. Like nobody's even close to Spotify. It's one of the world's biggest tech companies. And it's one of the few European tech companies that's actually successfully competing with the US tech companies. But yeah, so the key was to go early to the US, but even for Spotify, it was super difficult to launch in the US.
For years, I think we started.
Yeah, but yeah, let me jump in here because we have a question from LinkedIn, exactly asking about the Spotify, how close the playlist movie is to reality. And recently we watched this movie in my community and we had a discussion about it. And what I personally liked a lot, that the founder of Spotify, he was never like too humble. So he never was like, oh, Silicon Valley, and then like I have to like respect the guys because they are so smart. Like he was really bold. He was like, I will create an alternative to Silicon Valley. So I really like that, but I'm not sure this is true. It's just something we've seen in the movie. So how the movie is close to reality from what you know?
Yeah, so the stupid thing, I haven't still watched the movie, so I'm really sorry about that. But
Me neither.
and I mean, so I never worked personally with Daniel Ek. I know many people who did, and we've actually interviewed Axel for the Pareto program, who was running the international expansion of Spotify. But I mean, so if you look at Daniel Ek and the other founders, so Martin Lorentzon, yeah. So they were both serial entrepreneurs. I mean, they did something before Spotify. Spotify was not their first startup. So that's a big key to understanding Spotify's success, is that they were not doing this for the first time, right? And they had access to capital, right?
Yeah, but the founder of Spotify, from what I've seen in the movie, again, he did not actually like build a company. So he created a technology that was acquired by his like investor, who became a partner for Spotify. But yeah, long story short, it was not the first company, right?
Yeah. That's the point. Like in every story, there's so many aspects you can discuss, like who was first, who did what. Like it's always, every company is going to have the same conversation. But these two guys, it's clear that Daniel Ek was the more junior guy, Lorentzon was the more senior guy. But and I don't know exactly. It doesn't matter, if they were contributing 50-50 or 70-30 or some other proportion, doesn't matter. But the point is, they were not doing this for the first time. And the Trade Doubler, the company that they came from, was a successful company. So there was like capital for them. And already back then, when they launched, there was venture capital available in Sweden. So there was like these early venture capital firms that were, you know, investing in Spotify. So, you know, already back then the ecosystem was there, but it was like super early days for the ecosystem. So unfortunately, I can't comment on the movie, but yeah, it's easy to say, like, the challenge for Spotify was, of course, there was technological challenges. That's clear, but maybe the bigger challenge actually was to get the record companies on board.
Yes.
And they did that by, you know, offering some stakes or incentives to the record companies. And probably, so you can argue, was it a technological innovation, or was it more like a business model innovation? And, you know, typically most companies are successful companies are more innovating on the business model side rather than the technological side. So I think that's the case here as well.
Like, building on what you just said on the record companies, this is something that also amazed me in like their attitude, because they pushed and pushed and pushed. They didn't take no for an answer, because from what you see in the movie, they never ever heard any yes or maybe. It was always a no, like, no, I'm not interested. So it kind of contradicts with the lean startup approach that we all learn, like that you build like an MVP and then you test it and then you learn from it. So if they followed this approach, they would have never like launched Spotify, because there was no sign that this is something that the market needs and it's feasible and it's viable. So what do you think about that? Like, because I'm like trying to build a startup now, and for me, when people say like I always remember about Spotify and say no, but I have a feeling, I believe in this idea, I will proceed.
Yeah, it's you know, you can argue both sides of the story. So you could argue that there was no proof of concept and they did it anyway, or you could argue that, I mean, if you remember, so what was the world like, you know, back when Spotify started, you know, whatever, 2006 or whenever it was, you know, but you know, around that time, what was the world like? Well, you know, people were sitting in their, you know, homes, sharing MP3 files, right, with each other, like downloading MP3 files. And that's the world of, you know, music. And then kind of, you know, Napster came along and some other services.
Apple Music
came along.
also, I think, yeah.
Which one?
Apple Music. It was already, right.
I guess probably a bit later, but I mean, you know, the sharing aspect of it, right? Like that Apple wasn't doing that, right? So you had you know, Napster and some other services, and so it was very clear that people were interested in listening to music on their computer and on their phone. There was like no doubt about it. It was like super strong signals from consumers that they wanted to have access to music on their computers. Zero doubt. Of course, then the business model of Spotify, like getting actually the record companies and so on and so forth on board, I think that was, again, the hard part of it. So you can argue, you can say that there was evidence there was like proof of concept, or you could argue like there was no proof of concept. So depending on like if you take the demand side, it was very clear there was demand from consumers. If you take the supply side, which is the, you know, the songs and the artists, the record companies, it was not so clear that it would work.
That's the matter of time, I think, in that.
Question. So it's very difficult.
Matter of resources, you have to like survive during that time.
And that's where the capital and the professionalism comes in. If you're a first-time entrepreneur and you don't have access to capital, it would not be possible to do what Spotify did, or like extremely unlikely. But with their experience and access to capital, they were actually available, you know, they were able to push through this, you know, business model innovation resistance, right?
Yeah. Oksana, next, your questions or mine? I have a lot.
Of course, because I shared with you that the two questions that I really hope to ask, and we have like 20 minutes left. So yeah.
Let's be efficient.
I hear you. Do we? Oh yeah, we do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So go on with two questions of yours and then two questions of mine.
Please.
Yeah, so mine, yeah, first. Okay, yeah, so the question about government, so governmental influence to startup and entrepreneur business environment. What do you think about that? And did it change really? So you mentioned that it's in 70s, like business in Sweden was completely different. So
Yeah.
it changed and how it looks now. So and you also mentioned that like it's easy to start your own like company in Sweden now.
Yeah. So okay. So the role of government, right? So okay. So there are two positions on this question. So one position is that the government should not do anything. It should just leave everything to the market, and the market, businesses will take care of everything, and everything will be fine. The other side of the story is that the government should be very involved and push incentives and make changes and invest in things and whatever, right? So which of these stories is true? So if you look at Sweden, what the government has done is, first of all, create stable legal environment, reasonably stable, right? A good tax environment, like extremely good tax environment for entrepreneurs. Have this like subsidizing computers in the 90s. That's clear, and access to free education, free universities. So the government has done a lot of things in Sweden for sure, but it has not, like the government in Sweden has not been financing startups, really. I mean, with some maybe exceptions, but it's not like you have the Ukrainian startup fund, yeah. Like there is no Swedish startup fund.
Still not Ukrainian, so.
Sorry, say again.
I believe that the Ukrainian startup fund is still using the money that are coming from the EU
and money.
It's just the administrative body, not
right. So you can right. So fair enough. But so there is no Ukrainian startup fund in Sweden, so to speak. But there is actually a government-backed early stage VC in Sweden. Actually, when I think about it. But the general answer is the Swedish government has been quite hands-off when it comes to startups. It has not had an active part in the startups themselves, but it has been creating like a fertile ground. Like it has been creating the soil, the ground, the foundation for startups. In the US, the funny thing is that if you look at innovation in general, so the story of Silicon Valley, how was Silicon Valley born?
You have to say something.
So I have to. Yeah. So Silicon Valley was created by the U.S. government. Like people don't really talk about it, but but it's so after the Second World War, the Defense Agency research, whatever, DARPA, and the U.S. defense sort of part of government started investing in R&D for defense. So you could argue that all of these things, like the internet, is actually a military thing, right? Most of the communication stuff is military stuff, and so on and so on and so on. And you could argue that the Apple iPhone, all of the key technologies have been funded or financed by the government, including Apple itself getting government funding. Tesla was saved in 2010. Tesla was saved by a government loan. So if the US government didn't support Tesla wouldn't exist, like zero, would be bankrupt. And so even in the US, the government has actually had a very active role, but maybe not in the way that we think about it. But Silicon Valley exists because of the US government. So it's much more complex than saying the government should not do anything. That's simply not true. There is no proof of that working that I have seen, So the question is, what should the government do? Should the government try to pick these companies that will be successes? Or should the government kind of focus on creating the groundwork, like the foundation? And probably the government should focus on legislation, taxes, education, healthcare, maybe some subsidies here and there for some technologies, maybe focus on like basic R&D. Even in the US, most of the basic if you look at pharma, like medicine, most of the basic R&D is still funded by the government, from what I've seen. So the pharma companies are funding less R&D than the US government. So even there, even in a like extreme capitalist country like the US, it's actually, the reality is much more complex. Sorry for going on a rant there, but yeah, it's complex. It's my favorite word, complexity. Yeah.
Well, let's continue with one more complex topic, being Europe competing with Silicon Valley. Yes, so recently in the media we see lots of news on like the EU trying to create the ecosystem that would be an alternative to Silicon Valley because of, I don't know, of many things. Europe is not competitive anymore because people want to enjoy life and have their siesta and stuff. So the innovation is not being born, and like the whole like the, I don't know how many countries are feeling like left behind, right? So now like they realize that there is no country in EU, maybe Sweden can be this country that can alone be competitive to the Silicon Valley and other like tech hubs. That's why they're trying to like create some European like offering. And what do you think about this? And do you think that Sweden can be like, I don't know, like Sweden or maybe Germany? What other countries, or like Portugal or the UK? Like UK is not the part of the EU, but still.
Yeah. So what should the European Union do, if anything? I mean, I think it's basically what we spoke about. So the European Union should, to the extent that it can, should focus on creating rules that work, creating the foundation for entrepreneurship, not creating the entrepreneurship itself, if that makes sense. Sweden is amazing for startups. Estonia is amazing for startups. Finland is good for startups. Denmark is probably okay for startups. Norway sucks for startups. Netherlands probably good. UK, not part of the EU, but part of Europe. UK probably okay, but UK is a very tough country also. So, every country has its pros and cons. But what they could do for sure is this. I like this idea of being able to register a company more easily. Again, in Sweden it's super easy. Estonia super easy. It should be super easy in Germany and France and Italy. And so, yeah, I think that's what they should focus on. Maybe on the taxes. Like, I'll tell you one thing which the EU should do tomorrow. The EU should shut down places like Malta, and Cyprus. And this is controversial. I lived in Malta for like 3 or 4 years. The tax regime in Malta, it's like a tax haven. It's a coconut island. It's like Cayman Islands or Seychelles or something like this. It's insane that Malta is allowed to exist inside the European Union. I love the Maltese people, amazing people. The Maltese government and the Maltese tax regime, I mean, it's insane that it's even legal. So that has to be shut down tomorrow. If you shut down Malta and Cyprus, then you will have a much better kind of entrepreneurial, thing going on in Europe, arguably, assuming that some other European countries fix their own tax regimes and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Thank you. So we will not go to Malta probably. But I want to ask about their like mindset of Swedish people, and like there's the idea that Swedish culture and mindset is like low ego thing, and I also read the word. I tried to read it, Jantenlagen or Jantenlagen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's something quite opposite to Ukrainian. So you've been there. So we love.
Yes and no. Yes and no. But sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah. No. So that's so. I think so. because I live in Ukraine all of my life, and last 4 years I live in Netherlands. So Netherlands is more like closer to Sweden, obviously, and all of this status stuff which we have in Ukraine, like people take credits for, I don't know, even iPhone or like cars or all of these things, and you cannot see it like in Nordic countries and in Netherlands as well. So I think that it helps to be more like realistic and to be more efficient even in your business. What do you think about this? And you said yes and no. So.
Yeah, so let's think how to summarize this. But there is this thing called jantelagen that you refer to, the law of jante. In Sweden, it means that you should not, publicly display your, money or your whatever it is, right? So you should like keep it cool, not stand out so much.
Modest,
Yeah, to be modest, exactly. So being modest is the Swedish jantelag. Having said that, if you walk around Stockholm, it's very clear who has money and who does not have money. And if you go to a Swedish party, if I go to a Swedish party tonight, we're standing in somebody's kitchen, we're drinking beer, it will take approximately 37.5 seconds before the conversation turns into the real estate market. And everybody will be talking about the real estate market, and people will be sending these very small signals. So they will say, I live in this street. I have a 3-bedroom apartment in this street. And people will understand that this apartment costs $1 million or $2 million. So this is a rich person standing here. But the person didn't say, I'm a rich person. And the person did not show a Birkin bag, but the person sent this signal, this social signal, by saying, I live in this street and I have 3-bedroom apartment. So then everybody knows, So these signals, they are sent in other ways. So there is this law of modesty, but you still send these signals. And about Ukraine, so my experience from Ukraine is there are differences. So in the west of Ukraine, from what I'm talking as a foreigner here, there is this idea of modesty. You should be kind of modest and kind of heads down and be humble. Not always and everywhere.
No.
While obviously...
I remember, I will interrupt you here because I'm from western part of Ukraine, so I know things. So I remember my ex-classmate, she would always say oh, I don't have money. And in Kyiv, she would live in a dorm, in the outskirts of the city. But then every year she would get a new fur coat because that's her signal she wants to send to the world.
Yeah.
So I
mean,
would say
so it's complex. These things are complex, but so does this play a part in entrepreneurship? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. To be honest, there is a culture in Sweden of working. There is a work culture in Sweden. That's a good thing. There's also, and to be clear, Sweden became one of the richest countries in the world starting in the mid-19th century, so around 1850, something around that time. There was the schools were improved, or people were sent to school, railways were being built, that kind of stuff. All these big companies like Ericsson and the other guys, they came from this late 19th century, early 20th century period. There was a lot of entrepreneurship in Sweden back then. But yeah, the mentality, there is this work mentality for sure. There is also, unfortunately, in Sweden, this consensus mentality, meaning if I'm in a meeting with Swedish people, it's very hard to get them to say their opinion. And I'm a bit un-Swedish, so I'm half Finnish, and I've lived outside of Sweden for more than 15 years, including in Ukraine. So I'm not a typical Swedish guy. So I say what I think, and that's not how you do it in Sweden. You're not allowed to have clear opinions in Sweden. So that's bad for entrepreneurship. Right. Okay. So it's it's you have these different effects pulling you in different directions. So it's complex. Again, sorry for saying it's complex.
Як це ми українською кажемо, Боже, Оксана, help me.
I don't really. What exactly you want to
Sorry, все не так однозначно. Maybe you could
Це не
understand.
так однозначно.
Complicated. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's not yet.
Okay, so I think we want to dedicate some time to discussing our experience as students at the MBA program. And actually, this is exactly the reason we have this live stream, because I think, I'm speaking for both of us, because I never tried to understand like Swedish business culture, and like what I found really interesting from our mini MBA, that the case studies and the examples that you develop, those are like exclusive to this program. And I believe this is the only place you can learn this stuff, like, and get access to these people. And the other part of this is like having classmates coming from the Nordic countries. And I was doing international MBA, but I didn't have anyone from Sweden. So it was great. So where did the inspiration come from, like, to launch this Pareto Business School and the mini MBA program? And now I see you are launching more programs, not just this one, with AI, something with AI. So let's just focus a bit on this.
So Jens Beckbom and I, who are the founders of Pareto Business School, we both studied at the Stockholm School of Economics, and then we did, an MBA thing. I went to the UK, and Jens went to the US to do an MBA term, and then both of us started our own companies. So, to make a long story short, the Pareto MBA is really the program we would have wanted to have, back when we became entrepreneurs. And because when we studied, organizational theory in business school in Sweden and in the UK and in the US, you talk about Max Weber's organizational theory from the 19th century. And I can guarantee you that when you go to work on Monday morning in your, tech startup, Max Weber from the 19th century is not going to be your best friend. Like, that's not how you hire people, fire people, build organizational culture, like all of these things, like they are not relevant, basically, if this old stuff. So we wanted to build a program which was modern and using actual real science-based practice from real practitioners. So we have 3 different people from Spotify. We were talking about Spotify before, so we interviewed 3 different people from Spotify. We interviewed people from many other companies and asked them, like, how do you actually hire people? So Jonas from Spotify, he hired the first 2,000 people for Spotify. Jonas answers the question, this is how I hire people. So he talks about the process for hiring people. And we know that this works because he hired 2,000 people for Spotify, and we know Spotify was doing okay. So that's like the approach we take. So you can learn from, you're going to learn maybe something from Jens and myself, but you're also going to learn from all these other guys who are on the program that we interviewed for the program. So that's like the inspiration, like the background to the program, and that's the approach we've taken when we built the program, right?
Yeah, I was wondering, are they open about sharing their cases, all of these companies?
Yeah. The challenge is to find those people who are open to sharing, because, so most of the people we talk to, not all of them, but most of them are no longer in those companies. So they left the company so they can talk about it a bit more freely, but they talk about their companies, current or former, with respect and love. So we have nobody who's talking badly about their company. That wouldn't make sense. So they all love their companies, but they can share their experience a bit more openly. We do have some people who are in the company still. So we interview, the CEO of this, First Camp, which is the biggest campsite operator. And he's still the CEO, and we talk to him regularly. And he's amazing. He's an amazing CEO. It's a combination, right? But yeah, the challenge is always to find people who are ready to share their experience.
Yeah, that's great. But I was also thinking, they do not have NDA about this stories, or maybe they just in very general show that.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Yeah, in the case of Johan, the CEO of First Camp, so he's the CEO, so he knows what he can talk about and what he cannot talk about.
Yeah.
So it's easy for him. If we were interviewing somebody who's like CMO or some sales manager or something, they would not be able to talk because they don't know what they can talk about and what they cannot talk about. So Johan is very good at that. He replies to questions in a very good way, but without giving any, market secrets, so to speak, right? So that's the challenge. Or, Axel from Spotify, or Jonas from Spotify, or Eric Bernhardsson, who is now another Swedish unicorn founder, by the way, with Modal. He talks about his Spotify experience, and he can do it because that was a few years ago, a number of years ago. So, and he's not giving away any secrets. So but there's a skill in asking questions, and there's a skill in replying to those questions.
Mm-hmm. And the last question from me, because I see Tanya has more questions, but we are almost over. When is cohort number 7 happening, and how would you
13.
like use this time to invite more Ukrainians to join?
Yeah, so the next cohort is starting on the 17th of April, and it's cohort 13. Yeah,
13.
Cohort 13. And yeah, we invite, of course, we would love to have more Ukrainians on the program. We have a special offer. So if you email us on info@paretoschool.com, or if you write to me or Jens on LinkedIn, we'd be happy to tell you more. We'd love to have more, Ukrainians on the program. We had probably 10, 20 Ukrainians. We'd love to have more.
Yeah, great. I was also thinking about their cases that like maybe you added, or maybe you plan to add, like not successful cases.
Yeah.
Like did you? Because I do not remember that. We didn't finish.
So okay, very good question. So there is a bonus clip in the material. It's a bonus video, and it's called "Frauds, Failures, and Fuck-Ups."
Okay.
And it's about frauds, failures, and fuck-ups. So it's in there, but it's like bonus material in the program. But yeah, it's very true. We have this module called Adversity and Change, where we talk about difficult times.
Yeah.
Right. It's the current module, and but you're right. We could have even more about failures, to learn from failures. I love that idea. It's a great idea.
Okay, so we have one more question, and as a PR person, I really want to generate some leads because they always question that PR is not generating any leads and any income. So I want to fight for PR, and we have a question coming from Mykola Taxay saying, would I benefit from the program if I'm only starting with my entrepreneurship journey?
I think it's a very good time to do the program because, as I mentioned, both Jens and I, when we started as entrepreneurs, back in 2005 or something like that, we didn't know the things we know now. So we made a lot of mistakes as entrepreneurs. So I would highly recommend, maybe if the person is 18 years old, maybe it's a bit too early because, you need to have some experience from something. But yeah, like if you're in your 20s and you're starting a company, or in your 30s, I would absolutely recommend doing the program. You can learn a lot. You can avoid a lot of mistakes, and you're going to get, the money back, I think, very easily from the program.
Not from you, but return on investment.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah, I can also. Sorry, yeah.
No, I'm done, and I feel like we need to wrap up at some point. But I see Tanya has a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah. So
yeah, please.
I want to add some of my reflections about the program, because as Oksana did, I also had this big MBA, 100% of MBA for 2 years, even for 3, in Ukrainian business school, Kiev Mohyla, and I have this entrepreneurial experience, but still I understand. So it's never enough to study. That's first, because you always have all of this new cases, new people, you repeat these old things and they become new, and I also love. I even plan to make my own workbook and work with it. I love the prompts because in every like part of the program. So we have like for people who are listening, we have 8 modules. So 8 weeks, 8 modules. Each topic, like each week we have a different module, like from like financial. Like statements and documents to leadership, hiring people, growth, etc.
Sales and marketing.
Yeah, sales and marketing. Yeah, so like all of the chapter of like entrepreneurial path. But in each part of their module, you have prompts which you can use like for your own business. And it's so helpful. So sometimes I'm thinking like, oh my God, like prompts, it's so easy to think, yeah, because you do not need to do something like super like complicated. So you're always this like vibe, not vibe coding, but vibe like building, yes, or something. But it's so important that you have it. So it's just the reminder that just use it. Just use it, like brainstorm, like find something new, like add something new. So it's really cool reminder. And I really want to like calculate my return of investments after their program. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, maybe the super last questions, and we will finish. So, what will be? So, what do you think? Who will be the next like unicorn, or just successful area of business in Sweden or maybe worldwide?
Yeah, super good question. I think, SaaS is not dead. Software as a service is not dead. But I think there will be some kind of change in the business model. So I think I like the idea. I think so. Sequoia had this idea that recently the US, VC, that basically the next wave of companies will be kind of service companies that look like software companies, I think the term was.
Yeah,
so the idea is
to add to this, because I'm in service business for like 20 plus years. And recently the Y Combinator posted the open call for like what startups they are looking for. And it was like AI native agencies. Maybe this is...
So it should be that I said like service companies masquerading as software companies. I think it's the other way around. So it's software companies masquerading as service companies. So the idea is that clients still go to a company and they get like human contact, and the human says, yeah, we can solve this problem for you. But then that human uses, LLMs or agents or whatever to solve the problem. So it's still like human contact. It's still like a sales process, integration process, whatever. But then there's a lot of like machine intelligence behind, working behind the human. So that's, I think I like that idea. I think that is true. I think that's going to happen more and more. So I think you will see there's so many, including for Ukraine, there's so many IT services companies in Ukraine, like outsourcing IT services, whatever. I think they have a real challenge. They really need to step up to this challenge, and they really need to, use AI instead of being kind of threatened by AI. So they have to, what, sorry? Instead of, yes. So they have to go to their clients and say, we are now actually an AI agency, whatever. We are AI services company. So, we use AI. So it's kind of obvious thing, but I like that idea. And then, there's going to be a million other things happening. I like the idea of small language models instead of large language models, like local proprietary data, cheap, fast, local language models instead of these big, expensive public data trained LLMs. So I think that's an interesting idea. There's many different things going on. Defense will continue to be a huge area. Huge. So yeah, there's so much stuff going on. It's almost like hard to understand. Physical assets are back, so hardware, is back. In general, physical AI, like sensors, robotics, all of this stuff is super interesting. I have to run also as well. I'm so sorry for that. This is we should do this again. I mean, it's amazing conversation. I would love to do it again. Maybe we can try different people and have interesting conversations. It was such a cool idea, and I really thank you for, organizing it. It was amazing. It's the first time I did LinkedIn Live, so yeah, cool.
Yeah, thank you very much. And see you tomorrow.
Right, see you guys, and thanks again so much, and let's do it again, and
okay, bye.
Enjoy.
Bye. Thank you.
Now.
For everyone watching, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Connect with us. Connect with me. Connect with us. I would love to continue talking and being in touch with everybody.